Good morning. For those that don't know me, I'm Marsha and I'm on the leadership team here at NBC. As Simon said, we're focusing on Nepal this morning with our long connection with those people groups and the Baptist World Aid projects and Steve and Anna serving over there. So we're going to hear from Lyn as well a bit, as she was able to come along with me and Baptist World Aid team to visit some of the projects in Nepal. And she's also been a long-term intercultural missionary. But I'm going to kick us off with a challenge to us all that I encourage you to think about as you hear from the people who are sharing this morning. When Steve and Anna and Lyn and I met to discuss this morning's service, there were two themes that were running through our thoughts, and they were discomfort and connection. And when I was reflecting and preparing for this morning, I was struck by the difference in what level of comfort I was willing to endure as a person of God here in Australia, in my home country, compared to what I was willing to deal with in a foreign country. There's a picture up there of a bathroom that we experienced for some of our time, squat toilets, eating food that we didn't know where it came from, being with people that we were unable to communicate with any more than basically saying hello or relying on interpreters. But I was willing to do that over there. I guess part of that is because I do love experiencing new places and new cultures, and so that might be contributing to it. But I was reflecting that here at home when I had the opportunity several years ago to go and spend time down at Maycare with people who are not much like me and are challenging. That wasn't something that I was willing to give a few hours a week to do, yet I was willing to experience more discomfort in another place. And why is that? So the Bible paints a pretty challenging picture of what it will mean to follow Jesus and his call to make him known to others. Let me read Matthew 10:16-22. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say and how to say it. At that time, you will be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm till the end will be saved. So that's a really challenging passage and something to think about as we compare to our experience here in Australia. I'm left with a challenge of what I'm willing to commit to long term here where I live in order to connect with those that don't know Jesus. Some of those things, like being disowned or abandoned by your family, being discriminated against, being arrested for faith, still happen in Nepal. Maybe not as much as in some other parts of the world, but they have happened to people that I have met. So my challenge to you as you listen to what Lyn and Steve and Anna share is to think about how often you find yourself uncomfortable because you're a representative of Jesus. Is there a person that you find connecting with difficult, but you're committed to long term because you want to show them Jesus and see them come to know him? So we're also inviting you to take part in some of the challenges of the unfamiliar that intercultural connection might mean. You've already been asked to engage with two of them, taking your shoes off at the door, and women on the left, men sitting on the right. And there'll be some more through the service that we'll ask you to connect with. So Lyn's going to come up now and she's going to share some challenges of connecting interculturally.
Thanks, Marsha. I was actually going to ask people to put their hands up who felt really uncomfortable this morning. And I apologise to those people who are new to this environment because you've been slammed in the face with this. But even for all of us who usually come, I believe that there was a real element of discomfort. Yes? Yes, exactly. So that's just one thing. When you go to church in Nepal, it is men on the right, women on the left. And people said, well, what's the middle for? And we said, well, you just choose where you're going to sit. So, but I'm just going to let you know a few of the discomforts that we felt while we're visiting in another culture. First of all, being in Nepal or the subcontinent, for instance, or South Asia, we're so much taller than most of the people that we're meeting and so much fatter. So, it makes you really realize, oh, I am really fat, aren't I? Or you can't do much about your height, but let's not go to the fat bit. Um, Thank you. You're very gracious. Being older than most people around, going up so many steps. In Tansen, where Steve and Anna live, there's roads like this going up and down the mountain and steps in between the roads to connect between houses. And being older, being fatter, could I keep up with them? They were very nice, and we went downtown the middle road, which was still up and down. The embarrassment of when people greet you in their cultural way that may mean giving you flowers, putting a garland on, even touching your feet, makes you very uncomfortable. We're wanting to make connections with people that we're visiting. And the same here, we're wanting to make connections with people in our community. What happens when we can't do that verbally? We may learn a few key words or phrases like namaste, tama nam ki ho, mera naam Lyn ho. Will the people understand us? Have I said it correctly? Have I made mistakes? Yes, probably. Will people laugh at me? Yes. Will that be uncomfortable? Yes. How else am I supposed to make connections? It's not about me. It's about making a connection with someone who probably doesn't know, or maybe hasn't even heard of Jesus and doesn't know him. Having to sit cross-legged on the floor for a couple of hours or longer, or at least sit somehow so that my feet are not facing anybody because that will offend them. Even that's still uncomfortable. When I can sit no longer, and I don't know how much longer it's going to go on for, do I actually get up? Will that be considered rude? Do I go and sit on a seat? Does that make me look like the favoured Westerner? How do we share the love of Jesus with those who've never heard of him, let alone of the sacrifice he's made to bring us eternal life? What about those who do come to faith in Jesus and have their families disown them as if they're dead? How does this affect a new believer? And how do they grow and connect with other believers? Just some thoughts to think about.
When we were in Nepal, Lyn and I did get the opportunity to attend 2 churches, one in Kathmandu and Steve and Anna's church in Tansen. How many of you have been to a church in another country where there were no English elements in the service at all and you didn't speak the language? A few of you? Yeah. So we were lucky enough that in Kathmandu, one of the guys on our team was the preacher, so we at least could understand the sermon. But when we were at church with Steve and Anna, I in particular didn't understand a thing. Lyn could pick up a little bit, but I couldn't understand anything. And what's the point of going to church if you won't understand? God can speak despite the language barrier. Lord, we thank you for all the ways that you bless us, for the financial blessing, and this safe country that we have to live in and worship you. We pray that we will take the offerings that people have given back to you and use them to spread your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm just going to share briefly about Baptist World Aid. Before Christmas, Lyn and I had the opportunity to share some of the things that impacted us while we were visiting the Baptist World Aid projects. If you missed that and would like to hear it, let me know and I'll make that available to you. So I'm just going to give a brief overview and not go into much detail this morning. Baptist World Aid works with local partners on the ground in different countries, and in Nepal, two of the partners that they work with are UMN, United Mission to Nepal, and MCDS, the Multipurpose Community Development Service, which is linked with a Baptist organisation in Nepal. On the screen is a map of where UMN works, and the area circled at the bottom, the Kapilvastu region, is the area that Lyn and I visited to see the projects there. And there's a map of where MCDS works, and circled right over on the left, in the very west of Nepal, is the region that we visited some MCDS projects. On the screen is some info on some of the challenges that are faced in the Kapilvastu region, where UMN work, and some of the impact that they've had in that region. So just briefly, we visited some schools where UMN work, and they are helping teachers to learn how to teach and engage with children in a way that it is engaging and helps kids to learn. So rather than the route learning, they're using different resources and different techniques to teach the children. And they're seeing a real impact there with kids wanting to come along to school. The picture on the right is a group from one of the youth clubs that we visited. And so a youth club, we would refer to it as young adults. It's 18 to 30-ish year olds. And the guys in that photo have all become teachers, and they're passionate about seeing their communities change through educating children. And we were able to see some income generation projects. The fruit stand that you see was started because of a women's self-help group, and they identified the woman in the photo as the one most in need of a loan because her family had no land and therefore no means of a secure place to live or a way to provide food for themselves. So she was chosen to receive a loan to start this business, and how the program works is that she will pay back that loan to the group, who will then have those funds to pass on to somebody else and assist somebody else. And it's a really great program because the funds are owed to the group. They're not owed to a faceless organisation that she doesn't have to interact with. It's her friends that are part of a group, her community, that she owes that money to. And so there's that incentive to make a success and be able to pay back that money to the people that she has to interact with on a daily basis. The business is helping her son be able to go to school, and his school is actually the building that's behind the bananas in the background there. The other photo is a little shop that was started by somebody who was a part of another self-help group in a similar way. And there's a photo of one of the women's self-help groups and some of the things that they do in the community. The photo on the left is the president of a group, and she's signing a photo consent. So Baptist World Aid take how they deal with the participants in their programs very seriously, and they always want to honour them and give them dignity. And so part of that is making sure that anyone who has their photo taken understands what it will be used for. And the local staff do a really great job, we saw, of explaining to people why we're taking photos, how we're going to use them. They show them examples of brochures and web pages and things, and let them know that we will be sharing the stories that we've heard. And if they're not willing to sign off on that, no photos are taken. And this last photo is of some agricultural programs that we visited. where groups are receiving education to help them be more productive and wise so that they can provide for themselves more sustainably and will generate some income. So the woman standing in the field is part of one of the self-help groups, and the land belongs to her family, but they're making it available to the group who are working together to generate funds for the group to actually use to help reach their goals that they have for the change that they want to see in the community. So there was a question that was asked while we were on the trip, which some people here have asked as well, and that is why so many of the projects are with women. And so I just wanted to explain that a little bit. The situation in Nepal is that there's limited opportunities for work, and many of the men will travel away either to cities like Kathmandu or to India or the Middle East or even here to Australia to work. So many times the women are left in the communities with the children, and they're needing to be able to care for themselves. And someone asked if there will be more opportunities for men to stay at home as a result of these projects, and the answer that was given that it's not very likely, that the income that can be generated from agriculture, it might be enough to get by, but it will never be enough to cover things that crop up like medical issues or disasters. And there are a lot of natural disasters in Nepal which can easily wipe out that income from the agriculture. After we had the opportunity to visit the Baptist World Aid projects, we had the great privilege to travel on and visit Steve and Anna where they were serving. And, that was very special for me because Anna was one of the first people I connected with here at MBC. So just briefly, I'm going to play a short video of what some of the trip up to visit them was like, and Lyn's going to share.
Please. Percep.
Like the safety rails. Well, I've shared some of the discomforts that you can feel when you're away in another culture. This part I want to focus on the comfortable, the privilege of connection, specifically connection with Steve and Anna. For me, it was an incredible privilege to be in the amazing Himalayan mountain region. What an absolute blessing. Those mountains I just couldn't get enough of. And God was so good to us. Each of our flights that went halfway out to the countryside and then the one from the furthest west, we just had mountainscapes all the way. And it was, if you looked at my phone and saw all the photos, you'd say, were you crazy? Yes, I was. You just keep thinking, oh, there's a better one. There's a better one. It was a privilege to explore somewhere I hadn't been before, despite the many steps up and down and along difficult mountain roads to walk on. The discomfort of having to keep up with Steve and Anna as they walk along their less difficult route than normal to head down to town, remembering that when you go down, you still have to come back up again to their home or to the guest house. But it was a privilege to sit with Steve and Anna in their favourite coffee place or restaurant and their home and enjoy the different food that they get to eat every day because of where they live. Yum. I felt so privileged to have so much time with Steve and Anna and listen to their stories of day-to-day happenings, but also to hear the story of how they were called to Nepal in the first place and then how they managed to be called to Tansen. I felt privileged to see Steve and Anna interacting with some random young boys on the street as we walked along.
You are going.
To hear the conversation and enjoyment in the voices of the boys, as well as for Steve and Anna, they obviously were all enjoying the interaction. Privileged to stay in the guest house attached to the hospital, meeting new people from different parts of the world and hearing about their decision to come to Tansen. We were very privileged to have the honour of a grand tour of the hospital by Dr. Steve. And that was just amazing to be in that space and see all the aspects that we did see of the hospital and its run and its operations, not literal operations in the operating theatre. We're privileged to hear about the impact of the hospital and what impact it has on not just their community, but the surrounding areas. Some people travel something like 3 to 4 hours to just get to the hospital. There's no ambulance to bring them to hospital, so they either have to come by bus or they hire a taxi or con somebody to drive them. It was a privilege to hear stories of different people who have been helped over the years. And the other side of that was that it was uncomfortable and sad to hear the stories that ended not so well as we would hope, nor as we would expect if patients could get to a hospital sooner. We were privileged that whilst we were staying at the guest house, a Swedish lady visited. She was 6 years old when she left Tansen. Her parents had commenced the hospital work back in 1951. We saw lots of photos from all those years ago. We saw how the hospital had grown over the years and being a key building in that town, and to see how the town itself had grown. And just wonderful to know that it was all to the glory of God and for His kingdom. We were privileged to see Dr. Anna at work in her happy place, with children brought into the daily outpatients clinic. We were privileged to meet some of Steve and Anna's co-workers and friends, people we've heard of before, but others not. We were privileged to see Steve and Anna in their home, in their Nepal community, and at home. But did they always feel at home? You think about some of those difficult things, the language, adjusting to the culture, the dress, making new friends and new community. Has life always been comfortable for them? Has it been easy for them to make new connections? I challenge you to ask them after the service.
Mine's a little introduction to Nepal. A lot of you who have come to Tansen Church, Mayfield Baptist Church, for a long time probably know a lot of this, but it's just a jogging of your mind and some info for people that we haven't met yet. So welcome. Steve and I have been working in Nepal for 10 years. That's been spread over the last 17 years. We also belong to a church in Tansen, and we belong to you as well. We've been coming to this church for about 25 years. And next photo. One of the big themes for Steve and I over the last year in Nepal, 24, is connection with people, and particularly a deepening connection with people we've known for a long time. And that's been a recurring theme over the year, which we're very thankful for. And this verse reminds me of that, how good and pleasant it is. And next. So people know Nepal because of the mountains. 8 of the 10 tallest mountains in the world are in Nepal. But that's only a third of the country, the top third of the country. The middle third of the country are the middle hills, and the bottom third of the country is completely flat. It's like living in Darwin temperature-wise as well. So it's a very diverse country in geography and climate. And the next photo shows you where we live. So this is from the hill behind the hospital in Tansen, looking down. And there are a lot of stairs. You're right, Lyn. If we walk down those stairs, next photo, we'll come to our place. We're in an apartment building. And if you walk out onto our balcony, you'll have this view. And this view is of the top of the hospital. So those orange roofed buildings are the hospital. And those little things on top of one of the buildings are clothes being dried by solar power. The hospital's been there a long time, about 60, 70 years. And the next photo will show you that the hospital initially was the only thing there. It's a 170-bed hospital now, which provides general medical and surgical and obstetric services. But also, this photo reminds me that it also provides support to people and communities. So businesses have grown from the hospital being there. Economies have grown. Schools are now positioned near the hospital. So a community has been built around this hospital. And the suburb now has a name. It's called Busaldada. So from serving people directly from a medical point of view, it also serves people in other ways. Next photo. We have to actually get to the hospital. People ask us, isn't it dangerous? What's the most dangerous thing you do? You know, is it infectious diseases? Is it the political climate? And the answer is the roads and the bad quality of the roads. And the next photo, that dust is an active slide. So we came up to this area. We were going to a Christian conference with a bunch of people in the vehicle. And there was an active slide. A digger came around, knocked some stuff off so we could go. And we were just positioned there thinking what to do. And I said to our boss, who was in the front seat, what should we do? And she said, well, she's been there a long time. Drive faster. So we did. And we got there and we got back again. And the next photo. So when we get to where we're going, we're greeted by people we've known for a long time. So there's people in that photo we've known for 17 years. There's also people we've never met before, like some of you today. And the lovely thing is that our work is very intense. We live in community and we forge very quick, strong friendships with people. And so 3 of those girls in the front row, women, in the front row I'd never met before, and by the end we were hugging and kissing and saying goodbye. So it's a very powerful experience living in community. Next. So these people we've known for a long time too. The top right-hand photo, some of you have seen before many years ago when we first went to Nepal. So we met this family, Milan Ruth and their daughter Aung Soo, in 2007. He was a pastor at the time. She's a pastoral care worker. They eventually moved to Kathmandu and we still see them every time we go. Their little daughter now is a big girl, a young woman, and she's just gone off to study nursing. So we're thankful for that connection with them that's deepened over time. And the next photo. We don't just connect with the people that we work with. We don't just connect with the people we go to church with or live near. We connect with our patients. And sometimes those connections are deep and filled with hope for the families, particularly when this little one was born, who's less than a kilo. And the next photo will show that he graduated from a little plastic box to his dad's belly. And so this is kangaroo care, where you place the child on skin to skin on the mother or now the father's abdomen. And that just gives the child some temperature control, because little babies can't control their temperature very well, and that can be dangerous. So there is permission to take that photo as well. And the next. So this is a video that a friend took. It's very amateurish. I love it. So please enjoy.
ते पहिला ट्याप पिसा जब स्वागत छ
नमस्ते, म महानीलाल कुँवर।
This sea tail, see, she see, spy on.
कति राम्रो काम गर्नुहुन्छ।
दिदी जस्तै हामी
Daduro.
Semes
Kami na. Itu.
Okay, I'm Steve. We're not going to keep you much longer. But thank you for indulging us today. Thank you for being brave and taking your shoes off and sitting somewhere weird and stretching your own comfort level to somewhere else. Yeah, I had tears in my eyes watching that video, and I've seen it 4 times. Look, I wore the same shirt just so that you'd be able to pick me in the photo, and the same tie. So Fred and I are wearing ties today, I think, Fred. And I think in all but one of the photos that I appeared in, I'm still wearing that blue shirt. So this was made for me the first year we lived in Tansen in 2007, made by a member of our church, a tailor for a living. And so that's his shirt. This tie is made in Tansen, and this was a gift from the first Nepali that we made friends with in the 1990s when we went as medical students. So it's memory lane for us. So there's a couple of people with Australian accents in the bottom right-hand corner of that photo. And I'm not going to talk about them. I'm just for your prayers, I'm going to just tell you the story of one of our many, many friends that we love and respect. So the guy under the clock, who's also blown up a little bit big in the right-hand corner of that photo, his name is Tul Pun. Those of you who've trekked in Nepal might have gone to Poon Hill. So his surname comes from Poon Hill, where his family are originally from. And in that photo, he's an intern. He's just finished 5 years of studying medicine at Christian Medical College, Vellore, which was started by a bunch of Christians in the 1920s for women doctors of India. It's now one of the most respected medical institutes in the world. And Dr. Paul Brand, who was, some of you may have read some of his work, was one of the founding people of that hospital where he studied medicine. So he's an intern in this photo in 2007. He was shy, he was quiet. We were there for 7 months at that stage, and to be completely honest, I didn't remember that he was there until later on. I was looking back at old photos. He was so quiet. After this photo, he went off and worked in other mission hospitals around Nepal and other places in Nepal, and he went back to India, back to Christian Medical College for law, and studied orthopedics and became an orthopedic surgeon. And he married his wife, Christina. Next photo. So this is last year. And on the right-hand side of that photo is Dr. Toole again, no longer an intern, but now the medical superintendent of the hospital. So he's gone from the shy, quiet, gentle man. He's still a very gentle man, but now he's the most senior clinical doctor of the hospital and responsible for organising us on a clinical basis. Not the administrative one that has to chase money and balance the books and stuff, but the one who makes sure the medicine is performed as well as we can possibly perform it in our context. And I love him, and I love his wife, and I love the people in that photo. Next photo. This is 2017. And that's Dr. Toole in the middle there with a white shirt, and that's his wife under his their only daughter, 3 years old, a beautiful, cute little 3-year-old girl, got pneumonia, and we looked after her as well as we could at our hospital, and we transported her against all the odds to Kathmandu to a big hospital, and 3 or so hours after handing her over to their care in the intensive care unit there, they handed her back, died. And we put her in a polystyrene box and drove 12 hours back from Kathmandu to Tansen, and this is her funeral a few hours after. At that stage, there was nowhere to put a dead body at our hospital apart from in the very coolest part of the hospital foundations. So burials have to happen pretty quick. And the Christians in our town are buried on the other side of that hill that Anna showed a photo of. And so we were burying their only daughter at that stage. So as Lyn said earlier, we've been through great times with people and we've been through very difficult and sad times with people. Dr. Christina, Toole's wife, went to China for her medical training, and she went back to China for her specialty training, and she's a dermatologist now. And so they live in the hospital grounds. Their neighbours on one side are Daniel and Cecil, and I'd love to tell you all about Daniel and Cecil, but they're a beautiful Christian couple. Cecil's mum became a Christian through the care that she received as a leprosy patient. Daniel's the quietest man you've ever met in your life, but a wonderful orthopedic surgeon and, a great Christian. I'd love to tell you about Bikash and Mahima. Anna can tell you more about all of these people because she goes on walks with the wives and the wives do a lot of talking. Next photo. This is the foundations of the hospital being laid in the 1950s. And I love the photo from the point of view of remembering that our history is also our people and the people who are part of this long story. And Anna and I just have this tiny little bit part. I know it's big for you guys when you think about us, but in the whole story of the hospital, we've just got this little tiny walk-on bit. We walk on and we walk off and we do our thing. And we've made a contribution, sure we have. But hundreds and hundreds of people have, and mostly Nepali, all the way through the history of the hospital. The proportion of Westerners involved has been tiny compared with the proportion of local people. And they're certainly not all Christians. Our hospital's motto, "We serve and Jesus heals," is overtly Christian, but of the employees, maybe 10% roughly, which is about 3 times more than the national population of Christians. But that's our history up there. That's the foundations of our hospital. And all those green hills now are completely covered in 2 and 3 and 4-story buildings. As Anna described, the whole world came because of that. And we're allowed to be part of that story, and Mayfield Baptist is allowed to be part of that story. And so thank you for journeying with us and praying for us. And please pray for Dr. Toole and his wife, Christina, and his neighbours. They've all chosen, those Nepali senior doctors, they've chosen to come back to Tansen Hospital as their mission field. Dr. Bikash could be in charge of the biggest hospital in India. He's so smart and so talented, but he wants to be in a 160-bed hospital in the Middle Hills of Nepal because that's mission for him and his wife, as is Dr. Toole and Dr. Christina, as is Daniel and Sisam and the other Dr. Akash, who grew up, just around the corner from the hospital, whose mum basically taught me how to give anesthetics in Nepal. There's this cohort of senior Christian doctors that are a great witness in their country and their place, and it's our job to support them and to cheer them on and be part of that, and you're part of that story too.